Welcome in, everybody. I know it's Super Bowl season, right? We're a week away from the Super Bowl, depending on when you watch this. Okay, but Dave, we have Major League Baseball season on the cusp. We got pitchers and catchers getting ready to report. I saw the trucks loading up, and that means we have to talk season-long fantasy. Now, just so you guys know what me and Dave are going to do, we have a lot of good things cooking here. And if you don't know, you see it right there. Tony Jigsaw, Cutillo, Dave Gloeckner. You see where you can follow us. Most importantly, make sure you're following Win Daily Sports on all social formats. You're hitting the like button. You're hitting the subscription button. You see the code, run the bottom, win big, $5.99 a week. You get your free week with Win Big. So make sure you're doing that. And what we decided is we're going to get some strategy sessions going here, right, on Win Daily. And me and Dave are going to be doing a weekly show on Win Daily. Yeah, and we haven't got the name yet, but we're getting there. We're also going to be doing a show on 7 and 9, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. on Sirius every single Sunday morning. So we're going to be talking DFS. We're going to be talking season long. We're going to take your callers. But first of all, Dave, got the shades going, man. You ready for MLB season or what?
Man, it's February, right? And usually by February, we're thinking, oh, it's getting warm, Florida, Arizona. I've been out to both, the Cactus and the Grapefruit League, and they're just such wonderful places to see the grassroots of baseball, right? The times that we don't care, there's 5,000 people just watching them. Who cares what the score is? But just getting ready for what is America's pastime. And baseball is so, core to our values here as sports fans that I'm hyped. I can't wait. I know it's Super Bowl and I know we're a weekend, about 10 days away from that. But to think that we're that close to baseball and actually hearing the pop of the leather, Tone, I'm ready. I'm ready.
I'm a little disappointed in myself though, because I'm watching you. You got the World Series baseball shirt. I'm sitting here sporting the Eagles. I mean, we're covering both bases. It's okay,
Yeah.
but again, everybody wants to talk about draft strategy. What do I do? Because it's the time when you start really getting into projections, and we're going to talk a little rotisserie league strategy. And if everybody doesn't understand what roto is, we're going to explain to you how you go about it, what it is, scoring categories, traditional versus new. But Dave, before we even get into that, a lot of rule changes. We were talking off air this year that are going to kind of deviate from maybe your traditional projection model that you're going to give. I mean, as far as, do you want to get what's a couple of the rule changes you think that can kind of hinder what we're doing this year?
MLB 2023 brings to us a new game. They're trying to bring a little more life into the game. They tested it out in the minor leagues last year, and I think it is going to give us a little bit more of a speedier game. We're all sitting here in this new age. You go to an NBA game and you hear music all game and you get a lot of things going on that your mind is, connected. Baseball is trying a little bit of the same thing to speed it up. And what they're doing is they're giving a little more action. First off, pitch clock. I think that's going to be a big deal, especially for those guys that, some of them can just sit back, get the number and roll, right? But a lot of them are a little bit deliberate in their approach. Those deliberate pitchers, I think, are going to be pressed a little harder. I think it's going to open up a little bit of the offensive game. The second rule I'm really looking into, bases are going to be bigger, and they're actually moving from a 15-inch bag to an 18-inch bag, and they're moving back second base a little bit. I think we're going to open up the steal game. And then third, the big one, shift. Now you have to have two defenders at a minimum on each side of the bag. So you're not going to see the full 3-man shift to the right side of the infield or left side of the infield, depending what hitter you're going against. And I think that's going to open up some holes here for obviously the pull hitters. And then lastly, minimum number of pickoff attempts. Pitchers are allowed 2 step-offs of the rubber, whether you go and fully pick off or not. Look, if you use your 2 up early, that base runner is pretty much taking that solid 4-step lead, and he's safe to do it. So I think those 4 rules are really going to implement a lot of more activity in the game. It's not, what we've lived in these past, I want to say 4 or 5 years, Tone, is mash and bash, right? Ks and home runs. I think we're going to see a little bit more strategy be developed now, which is going to be good for the fantasy game too.
Yeah, listen, I'm all about strategy. I love it. You said one thing that brings tears to my eyes, and that's more running on the bases. I love stolen bases. It's a huge part of the game. And listen, Philly, we got a good guy in Trey Turner being you're right. We got a nice guy in Trey Turner we need to look at. But right off the bat, everybody's out there asking what is roto, and I'll give you basically my synopsis on it, it is a full out scoring league. It's not like every week you're like, well, I'm going to go up against Dave this week. I'm going to go against Jason the following week. No, there's no more head to head. If it's 12 men, if it's 13 men, you're playing up against 13 men or women. That's what it is. Every single week, it's cumulative. So it consistently scores. Now, with that, Dave, it's all about your draft strategy. We talked about that, right? It's a 5x5 league with the statistical categories. Basically, they could be custom, but again, you kind of know what those normal categories are: home runs, runs batted in, runs, stolen bases, right? Some can have average at bats. It all depends on, they can have double, single. It all depends on what they do. But for the most part, how do you, I mean, me personally, I want to get your take on it first, and then I'll explain what my draft strategy is. But how do you go into these roto leagues? Like, what is the kind of mindset that you need to have when you start fiddling with your roster?
So I play in two big significant roto leagues, both 5x5. Actually, one 6x6 with a half point to the
Ooh.
sixth category. So it's not bad. So you're about 5.5 by 5.5. But one of them's a keeper league where you can keep a minimum amount of people. One is a redraft, and I think in both cases the strategy should be as simple as this: the more balanced teams obviously win, right? But to the point, you need to be dominant in either a pitching or a hitting category and then be able to bring the other one up. So from my standpoint, if I'm sitting there in the top 3-4 picks, I am going to try and hammer hitting. I'm going to look for a more balanced hitter, one of those power position hitters that also scores runs, is able to steal bases, hit for average. They don't fall off the tree, right? Your Mookie Betts don't fall off the tree, but those are why those guys, the Mike Trouts, are up there in the top 3 or 4 every year. Now, if I'm back in the middle of the draft, Tone, I'm really going to start thinking about getting pitcher. And what I want to talk about here is, and it might be similar to you, is whatever you do in the first round, I fully suggest you do in rounds at least 2 or 3. Now, what I mean by that is maybe pitching, you might only go 1, 2, and then go to hitting. But hitting, if I'm top and I go hitter 2, I go hitter 3, and then I start to build my pitching after that. I want to build a position of strength, one or the other, and it depends where I fall in the draft. But that's my strategy going in, obviously, is to build a position of strength. I believe I can build depth in the other position to really get the points that I need to bring that one up.
I like that. POS, and we're not talking about piece of what. We're talking about position of strength, right? I'll tell you what. Me personally, if I'm in a roto league, I want the number 1 overall pick. And I'm going to differ a little bit from Dave, and I'll tell you why. And again, this could differ year to year, right? I mean, it all depends on how many bats you have up towards the top, how many can fall, right? Me personally, I look at pitching as an absolute must. And one thing I agree and one thing I disagree with. The one thing I agree with is whatever I do at the first pick, no matter where I pick, I'm doing with the second pick. So the way I look at this is I want the number 1 overall pick. Now, obviously, there's several different methods, but if I have the first overall pick, I'm taking the top pitcher on the board. That's just what I'm doing. And the reason why I'm doing that, Dave, is because I know I'm coming back. And say if I'm in a 10-man or a 12-man, whatever it is, I know I'm coming back with back-to-back picks that I could still grab another stud starter that gives me 2 horses, and then I can start my bats with possibly maybe a guy like Rafael Devers that goes down that low, right? Maybe a guy like Manny Machado that gets that low. Because listen, projection models. I mean, right now you're talking that kind of range, and that's a really Austin Riley's a really good bat. So again, everybody has their different formula, but that for me is pitching. Whenever I've won my roto leagues, Dave, I've always had 2 stud pitchers because I just feel like, even though, like you say, I agree with you that you want to build whatever, your position of strength, but I just feel like there's so many more bats out there that you can build upon than there are arms. So if I can get those 2 studs at the top and just ride them out, I feel really comfortable. I do.
I don't disagree with that strategy. The only thing I'll say about picking at 1, listen, 5 categories for pitchers as a starter. The only ones that are you're going to lose one. You're not getting saves, right? You're only going to build up the ERA, the WHIP, the wins, and the Ks. And even wins get a little tricky anymore these days, so with the way people manage their pitchers. So for me, you pick a number 1 batter, he clears the 5 categories. That's just why I'm kind of more in the batter position, but I love stud pitchers. I will revert to a stud pitcher probably if I'm hampered in the middle round to late first round, absolutely going 2 pitchers. I'm with you. I like that strategy. It's interesting that you think about going that early, and I'm not against it because you would be sitting there going 124. I'm thinking 12 teams, right? 124, and you're picking up a hitter at 25, and I think that's real, keen on you to think that a Devers or a Machado could actually last that long, and they would at that pick. So that's interesting to look at it that way.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm the crazy bastard that took like Donovan McNabb #1 overall as a quarterback in NFL, right? And just so you know, the 1 year everybody saw I was nuts. I took Matt Forte with my #1 pick, and because I knew he's a PPR monster, and I won a Super Bowl. Just throwing it out there. So I'm not saying I'm always right. I'm never saying that, but I'm just saying sometimes the different strategies do work. Now, one thing I think we should do, Dave, which I think will be interesting. I'm thinking on the fly here. Down the line, maybe we'll do a draft offline. With me and Dave will do a draft. I'll do my strategy with taking a pitcher at #1. Dave will do the bats, and we'll see kind of what the way the roster is constricted between it or constructed between the two, and see who the audience thinks is the best. We'll do it that way. Now, let me ask you this, Dave. Relief pitcher. You mentioned it because there's a lot. Listen, we have it in Philadelphia to where they've actually said it's going to be closer by committee. So what's your strategy with relief pitchers? I mean, are they just kind of like team defenses now in football? Like, I mean, what do we do here with that?
Great question. So I've always been like with relievers, even when you had the steady Mariano Rivera's or Aroldis Chapman's.
Yep.
My belief is if somehow, some way you can find in your draft strategy to pick one stud, because there are a few out there that are still out there that will be the hold down man for the whole season. We get him and we forget about relief pitchers until the 20th round. Most leagues let you start 2 relief pitchers and then some flex pitchers to get those save categories if you need to on certain weeks. So you're going to need one, definitely. And then that second one, I mean, we can go back. Who was the Phillies closer this year? We'll just go back and talk about that. At the beginning of the season, they looked at so many other options, but it ended up being who? I don't know either. It was Sir Anthony Dominguez. It was Jose Alvarado on the right night. A team that got to the World Series, even Houston Astros traded away a reliever in the middle of the season that was a closer. So look at the Milwaukee Brewers trading away Josh Hader. Like, closers aren't your standard anymore. I agree with you, but there's about 4 or 5 that you can rely on the top. If you can go one of those 4 or 5, go in the 20th, 23rd, 24th round, pick just some flyer names, you'll be fine. And that's how I treat saves anymore.
I mean, it's honestly the only way you can be, right? Because listen, we don't have Mo anymore, right? We don't have these guys that are just backdoor guys that we know are going to pitch. You got Diaz in New York, who is going to be there. There's no closer by committee there, right? So we know that. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. Now, last thing about the lineup before we talk overall final thoughts here. We talked about year in and year out with the baseball. Sometimes it's juice, sometimes it's not, right? So, home runs are up, home runs go down. So it's like, what are we doing as far as from the power perspective? Are we looking at guys more like home run guys? Are we looking at more of those, hey, listen, there's a roto league, right? The 5x5 guys, to where we're saying we want the stolen bases, we want the average, the singles, the hits. I'm a big positive point production guy, DFS, and we're going to have a DFS strategy session next week. But, what is your mindset when it comes to the bats?
So head-to-head leagues I play in a lot, and I look at that league where Ks are debilitating. They really hurt you. Guess what?
Yeah.
Roto leagues, they don't, right? So I look really in roto leagues, I look at power hitters and power hitters only. I'll punt the average category and just hope maybe some of my power hitters, have a good average year. Because when you hit a home run, you get a run, you get a hit, and you get an RBI. You get a minimum of those, and you're canceling out 3 of the categories that you already need. Average and stolen bases, obviously important, but if I'm going to do anything, those are going to be on my bottom side and hope maybe my fringe players bring them up. Here's the thing about stolen bases. In the past few years, they've been got by some really odd guys, and you can just go out there and get 1s or 2s that get the 30 stolen bases, and you're going to be fine and can compete. If you can go 1 or 2 of those guys, it's fine. It's not like the good old days with Vince Coleman and Willie McGee. You remember the running Redbirds those days, even Ricky Henderson. You would need somebody like that. Not anymore. You got about 4 or 5 guys that steal 30 bases. You can get maybe one of those off the fringe end. So I look at power in roto. I really think power is important. And here's the other thing, one other thing in roto that I look that is huge. It's position flexibility. If you can find guys where you're able to play them at different positions because they've qualified. A lot of your leagues will have a minimum of 10 games at one position will qualify them for that position. That's huge. If you're able to get a guy that can play 2 or 3 positions, I'll just go to Max Muncy in LA. He's able to play about 5 positions when he goes second base, third base, first base, outfield, DH. Guys like that, really huge, can win a roto league for you just by being able to flex them and put them in different positions and help you while you build your team in the draft, but also manage your team during the season.
Yeah, that's a great point. Position flexibility is huge. I always look at those multi-positional players all the time, man. They are so key. If they're listen, I will say this: if you're out there and you're in your draft and you're looking at 2 guys and they're separated by about 10 points, go with the guy who's more positional eligible. Yes. That's all, right? That's all I'm saying, right? That's all I'm saying. Our man Ivan checking in says he agrees with Dave on relief pitching strategy. I do too. It's why we got him here, right? See you. What's up? See you checking in to do with the best hair in the business and great picks as well. Says haven't settled into baseball in a while, to be honest. Brady Anderson still on the Orioles. Thank him and Cal taking to the house this year. Oh my God, dude, that's so funny. Brady Anderson.
And I will tell you a quick story. That Brady Anderson year, that's when you knew people were on roids.
I keep saying though,
I'm not going to be mad. I loved it. I'm
not mad either. I'm not mad. I think there's a place for him in the hall. I don't care if you build a special wing. It should be. But all I know is there was a lot of people doing roids and a lot of people didn't need refunds because it didn't friggin' work for them. So because there were some cats doing roids and didn't do nothing for them. So at the end of the day, let them in, man. Let them in. Dave, final thoughts here on Roto League strategy as we go forward.
Yeah. So again, when you look at Roto League, build a position of strength, understand the depth charts on each team, build your guys that have player position flexibility. And also, as we talk about pitching here, I really value starting pitching over relief pitching. But if you can find yourself in a way to get one of those steady, really good aces in the bullpen, those dedicated closers, try and get one. But I will tell you, they move so much during the season that you'll be okay if you're active on the waiver wire to get some good saves through that method of punting that position. Like some people do in football when they punt quarterback, that's how we treat relievers. Look at the best ones, those 3 or 4, otherwise wait.
Yeah, nah, listen, I completely agree. The only word of advice I'm gonna tell everybody is roto leagues more than head to head, you need to be prepared. Don't go into your draft just thinking you have a sheet. You have to have backup plans and everything because they go fast. And again, the position eligibility is huge. And make sure that the thing is, Dave, see if you agree with this before we get out of here. When you're going head to head leagues and you're doing a typical snake draft, 10-man league, adjusting on the fly is a little more easier than it is in rotisserie leagues. It's really hard to adjust on the fly. So you need to be prepared to say, okay, I knew for a week where my pick is at. I have an idea. You can really pinpoint your positions, whether, of strength, can't you, beforehand?
I agree. Listen, catcher's another one, right? There's about 2 or 3 top value catchers in the league. You don't get them, punt, and punt more and wait. That's another strategy. But you're right. I mean, head to head, even weekly, like you're looking at it like I got to get as many pitchers starting this week because I'm going against 9 starts on the other team. I want to make sure I get 10, right? Roto's not like that. You always got to be ready to be able to be adaptive. You're playing your stats. You're not playing the other person. So, Tony, you're right. You need to build that team well-rounded, but you really need to focus. Like you said, in a draft, if it starts going one way, you need to be able to move very quickly in Roto because, if you see everybody pumping up on power, okay, let me go get some average and stolen bases. In head-to-head, you're just getting the guys you like. So I agree with you. You do have to be adaptive in a Roto draft.
Yeah, and head to head, you're again, not only you're going week to week, but the stats, obviously fluctuate. In Roto, listen, if your own projections, if you're projecting a guy to give you 400 points over the course of the year, guess what? He's going to get you 400 points. So again, because it's adjusted for the entire year. Where head to head, it's like 1 week he could be on the top end of that, right? On another week he'd be on the bottom end. So you kind of just got to let it play out. It's almost like a best ball league on steroids, kind of, so to speak, right? But you're allowed to make moves.
Yeah, and I will say, don't go in there and saying, I got 5 guys with power and I got 5 guys with speed. You'll lose. I'm telling you, you got to build that one area that you want to be strength, and then you got to get 1 or 2 in that other to just get you in like maybe the middle to the upper third of that category. You don't need to win every category. You win 3 out of the 5. You win 3 out of the 5, you're going to be really good shape.
Yes, I completely agree. So listen, Tony Jason Cutillo, Dave Gloeckner right here, Win Daily Sports. As always, make sure you follow us at Win Daily on all social formats, windailysports.com. You've seen it through the entire episode. Co-wear, win big for your free week. $5.99 every single week on here on out. Projection miles, analytics, stats, everything, content, you name it. And listen, a lot of big things happening. Make sure you get on board now. Me and Dave, like I said, we'll be doing a weekly show, I think possibly Thursday night. We don't have the name yet. And then we'll be Saturday mornings on Sirius from 7 to 9, going over all your
Sunday mornings.
Oh, what did I say? Saturday?
Yeah, it's Sunday.
See, I'm all messed up. We got too much shit
church.
going on. That's the problem. We're all over the freaking place.
Yeah.
I gotta have my Google Calendar up on the one side of my screen just so I know what the hell we're doing. But yeah, man, absolutely. For Tony, for Dave, for all the Win Daily Sports family, everybody stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll catch you back here next time.